Could it be, possibly, help on the way for the 76ers as both Trendon Watford and Kelly Oubre get an upgrade on their status and Tyrese Maxey in clutch time? We'll talk about that and more in this edition of Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And we do thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This particular episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, FanDuel is offering something fantastic. For tip-off on Fridays, check out FanDuel app. Check out the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on FanDuel. Keith Pompey, your 76ers beat writer for Inquirer.com. Marc Farzetta, a veteran sports talker in the Philadelphia market. We're breaking it all down when it comes to the 76ers on Locked On 76ers. And Keith, we got to talk about Oubre and Watford status. Lovely to see that they're questionable. Then Maxey's numbers in clutch time, not crunch time, clutch time. An NBA stat out there also on Inquirer.com. We'll talk about that. And then just preparing for the Wizards tonight. You're at shoot-around. Will be taking place momentarily at the Xfinity Mobile Arena in South Philadelphia. But, Keith, let's start it off with this. I saw your report yesterday. Oubre and Watford get that upgrade. What's going on there?
Yeah, that's a good sign, right? I mean, it's funny. Last week on the road trip, both of these players kept saying, yeah, we just got to get a couple practice in. We got to get this 5-on-5 practice in. I'm assuming that yesterday they were on the court and they did something, and something that they really like and they saw with them. So now they went from being out, and Kelly Oubre, both of them been out since November, to now they're questionable. So with that being said, I'm assuming that it's one of those things where they're at shoot around right now. Shoot around is going on right now, participating in shoot around. They're going to see how they feel afterwards, and then after that, they're going to decide. Who knows? They may even decide, as soon as they do the shoot around. So that's something to pay attention to. But yeah, that's a good sign. But it's kind of like one of those things expected. The hope was, and Nick Nurse did hope and pray that, not pray, but he hoped that these two guys would be able to come back during the road trip. They didn't get in enough practices to do that. So now here we are against the Washington Wizards, and they could use both of them.
Certainly. Now, Trendon Watford, not up for debate. Bench player, really. Kelly Oubre was a starter. He obviously has experience coming off the bench as well, but was a starter. How do they put Kelly Oubre back into the rotation, back in the starting lineup? Does he take over for Dom Barlow? You talked before about Paul George staying in the starting lineup. How does all this work out once Kelly Oubre does come back?
That's a great question. And initially I always felt like, Kelly Oubre, for what he did, he deserves to be a starter. Like, clearly he's a starter. But after you talked to Nick Nurse, and we spoke to him when they were in Memphis before the Memphis game, and Nick basically said he looks at it was actually Dallas. It was the Dallas game. Nick said he looks at Paul when Kelly comes back as a 3, right? So with that being said, you have to assume that Dom Barlow is going to stay in the starting lineup. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to have starter type minutes, but I think that the way that they're going to stagger things, it looks as if that PG is going to be at the 3, Dom's going to start at the 4, and then possibly Kelly coming back. Now, that's based off of what Nick said at that particular day. I think ideally, even no matter which way you go, ideally early on, I think that you want to bring Kelly along. You want to bring him along slowly a little bit. So it's better to have him coming off the bench initially and then see how they play from that point forward. But I think it's more so about Paul George than it is about Kelly Oubre and Dom Barlow. And that Dom is a bigger guy. He can do certain things. And then it kind of protects Paul from going up against these elite power forwards where it could be a mismatch.
No, absolutely. The other thing is Kelly Oubre was averaging about 35 minutes per game. Granted, a lot of those minutes were also logged when Dom Barlow was on the mend in the early goings of the season before Kelly Oubre then got hurt, and he went on the mend, as you mentioned, since February, since November. You're also talking about the versatility and the defense that Kelly Oubre brings to the table here. He averaged 5 rebounds a game in those 35 minutes. Now, conversely, Dom Barlow was averaging about 5 rebounds per game, playing about 10 minutes fewer per game in that stretch. So there is I think, a tough decision to be made here. You obviously bolster the bench with Kelly Oubre coming off of that, but is it a situation where Barlow has to maintain the level of play that he's been at before Oubre might take over more responsibilities? Not necessarily at power forward, as we've known it in the past, but at the 4 spot.
Yeah, here's the thing. Like the one thing I look at Dom Barlow now, if they continue to go this way, the best way to look at Dom Barlow is when we look at the 76ers when they won the championship, right? Where you had Marc Iavaroni, right? So Marc Iavaroni was out there because, you know what? He was a guy who could just grab rebounds, do things that, that didn't take away from other players. And that's what I look at Dom Barlow. So then you brought in Bobby Jones. We all knew that Bobby Jones was the guy, right?
Uh-huh.
So then you can look at Kelly Oubre as being kind of sort of Bobby Jones. I'm not putting that pressure on him to be a Hall of Famer, to do all this, but you get what I'm saying. Like,
the role to play.
His role is, it might be a little bit more prominent than what they have. But however, when you had Marc Iavaroni starting, then all of a sudden the ball, it was easier for other guys to get involved, right? You know what I mean? We knew exactly what Andrew Toney was going to do. We knew exactly what Dr. J was going to do, right? Moses Malone. So Mo Cheeks. So now you look at it, it's kind of like Iavaroni just was like, let me not get in the way, grab some rebounds, play some defense. But then all of a sudden, when Bobby Jones came in and we staggered stuff, we still had somebody out there who was going to be able to be in attack mode and do a lot of different things. So when I look at that, that's what I'm seeing with that, right? He could be that type of guy who can be, for lack of a better word, a plug in the starting lineup. And then when they start staggering things, then next thing you know, Kelly comes in. But the big question to me is, who do you close the game out with, right? Because we know that Dom Barlow is not going to be on the floor. For recently, the guy who they closed the game out with was Quentin Grimes. So do you go with Grimes or do you go with Oubre? So this is the thing that I'm thinking about right now because of, Kelly Oubre is an elite defender, right? Grimes is a quality defender. But to me, that's the main thing. That's the main thing that I'm looking at. Is it going to be Oubre closing out or is it going to be Quentin Grimes closing out?
Interesting. Then finally, Trendon Watford, we all know the history there with Tyrese Maxey. Unfortunately, you saw him go out grabbing his hip, and then he's been gone since then. I don't know what to make of his minutes because now we're talking about Oubre coming back around the same time, hopefully tonight against the Wizards. We'll get more information on that a little bit later today. Then you also obviously already have Paul George in the mix. You have Dom Barlow in the mix as well. You like what you've been seeing from Jabari Walker also. Where do they go with Trendon Watford here? How does he help the team going forward when he's back?
It's weird because Whittencourt basically said that's a wait and see, right? Is one of those, like, the jury is still out, is a direct quote with what Nick Nurse said about him last week.
So he's confused as well. That makes me feel a little better.
Well, because you know what, it's one of those things I think that Kelly's been in the system for this is his 3rd year here, right? When you look at and Kelly was the glue guy, so to speak, before he was injured, right? We all know Kelly's having one of his best seasons. The thing with Trendon is people forget he started off the season injured, didn't play. Then he plays several games. He had 2 really good games, and then he had some other games where he fit in. But then all of a sudden he got injured again. So now you look at it, Trendon was supposed to be in the beginning. He was supposed to be ahead of Barlow and Jabari Walker, right? Now you look at Barlow, you see how he's been a seamless fit in this lineup, and he's most likely, probably going to continue starting based off of what Nick Nurse said. And then you look at Jabari. Jabari's been able to come in. He had a game where, the first time they played Dallas, they put him on Cooper Flag and he shut him down, right? And then he had other games where, they closed out with from certain games and been able to make shots and do all the unheard of stuff. So when you look at it, you're saying to yourself that these two guys have been seamless pieces while the other guy hasn't really played. So I feel like for him, he's going to, whenever he gets in, he's going to have to impress the coaching staff for them to say, look, maybe we need to put him in here as opposed to these other guys. But as long as Jared McCain is making shots and all these other guys, you kind of need more of what Jabari Walker is doing and more of what Don Barlow is doing, as opposed to what Trendon Watford is doing, because he's a ball handler, right? He needs to get touches. He needs to do this. So, and then you also have Paul George doing that as well. So, there's just a lot to where he's going to have to show what he can do and prove it, because right now these other two guys have played and they've shown that they can play well with the others.
All right, when we come back, we're going to take a look at Tyrese Maxey's season. We all know he is having a phenomenal year. We're talking about third leading scorer in the NBA. We've talked about being amongst the leaders, top 4, top 5 in three-pointers made per game, and certainly growing as the scoring leader, obviously, of the 76ers. But one chink in the armor we will talk about when we return. This is Locked On 76ers and Locked On Sixers YouTube channel. Back after this. And right now I'm going to tell you about FanDuel, and hopefully you guys are taking advantage of all FanDuel has to offer, especially with the FanDuel Happy Hour. You guys taking advantage of this? It's a great time. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better every Friday before the game tips off. FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is the official pregame and limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before all the action tips off in the NBA. Fridays from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during NBA Happy Hour always brings something new. Boosts, bonuses, and surprises on the FanDuel app. So before tip-off, check out the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during the NBA Happy Hour Fridays from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. A little basketball, little action, a whole lot of Friday energy surrounding the NBA. NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. And the Everydayer Club, you've heard us talking about it a lot. Join LockedOn76ers.supercast.com. That's LockedOn76ers.supercast.com to get in on the Everydayer Club. Access to ad-free audio feed of Locked On 76ers that's compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast application. You guys can join the Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes group chat just for listeners of the show. Hosts hanging out in it as well, part of Locked On 76ers. So go to LockedOn76ers.supercast.com and check out the Everydayer Club right now. Keith Pompey, these numbers are a little startling when it comes to Tyrese Maxey. I was reading your article on Inquirer.com, stayed right there on Inquirer.com because I saw a little headline about Tyrese Maxey in, quote, clutch time. Not crunch time, clutch time. And I meant this might contain some numbers that I've been curious to see with Tyrese Maxey. And sure enough, your colleague Gina Mizell brought up the subject of Tyrese Maxey's numbers, and I have them here for you. So the NBA considers clutch time to be within 5 points or less with 5 minutes left in regulation. Within 5 points or less, 5 minutes left in regulation. In that time, that clutch time, Tyrese Maxey's shooting percentage, his field goal percentage, dips about 8 points. It dips from 47% to 39%. His shooting percentage from three-point range, so his three-point percentage dips from 40% to 22%. That's not great. Look, we all know what a great season he's having, but you and I have even pointed out his struggles in what the NBA calls clutch time. These numbers, I think, do tell the story of Tyrese Maxey late in a lot of these games this year.
It does, but but when we look at it, and those numbers do, dip comparable to Shea Gilgeous and Jalen Brunson and guys like Anthony Davis, Cade Cunningham, and Devin Booker. They do, they're way below theirs. But there's two ways to look at this, right? There's a way to look at it and you say, look, Maxey has to improve. The second way to look at it is that, Maxey's kryptonite and the Sixers' kryptonite late in games of close games have been that teams are trapping him. They're throwing extra bodies at him. They're trying to get the ball out of his hands. And if he does shoot, they're forcing him to take tough shots, right? So, and a lot of that has to do with there's really hasn't been, due to injuries and other things, there really hasn't been someone else on the floor to help him, take the weight off of his shoulders. Now, I think you do have a player now in VJ Edgecombe. He showed that he can do that when he made that game-winning shot against the Memphis Grizzlies, right? But even with that being said, now if you know that that's the option, the one of the few options you have, you're going to try to, your defense is going to try to prevent him from doing that, and you're still going to try to, trap Maxey. So I'm not making excuses for him, but I also do think that it's a whole lot easier when you're Anthony Davis and you got, others on the floor, Cade Cunningham, other options on the floor, Devin Booker, some other guys who can stretch the floor. And especially with OKC, I mean, they got like a young all-star team, right? Yeah. So, yeah, Maxey needs to get better and improve. But at the same time, it's hard when you're the only option for the most part on the team and everybody knows, well, look, this is all they got. We're going to trap them. We're going to try to make him throw up some stuff or at least pass the ball. And when he passes the ball, unfortunately, aside from passing it to VJ Edgecombe in the past, is really nothing positive happened in the clutch. So yeah, that's how I look at it. But the numbers are numbers. But at the same time, I don't see Shea and Brunson and all them being trapped as much as Embiid does. I mean, as much as Maxey does in the end of games.
And I always say this about numbers. Numbers never lie, but they sure as hell can deceive. And I will say this about these numbers: the one deceiving thing about it, it implies that people expected Tyrese Maxey to all of a sudden become the guy in every aspect of the game, especially on the offensive side of things, and that just wasn't realistic. Like I'd love to see him shoot, like you mentioned, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, 49% from the floor in those clutch moments. Jalen Brunson, 51% from the floor in those clutch moments, except when he plays the Sixers. I thank you. All these guys are fantastic. I didn't expect Tyrese Maxey to just all of a sudden be the guy 100% of the time. There's a difference between the way you play in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, a lot of the fourth quarter, and then the last 5 minutes when the game's being decided. You could be great up until that moment and then have some struggles. I'm not condoning anything Tyrese Maxey has done as far as those struggles have gone in the last 5 minutes, but I am saying that I didn't expect him to go out there and just start nailing game-winning shots every day or every single game, and certainly hoping that the Sixers wouldn't be in the situation where they would need the final 5 minutes of the game, him to absolutely go off. This is all part of the learning process. And just like everything we've seen from Tyrese Maxey throughout his career, this is something he's going to get better at. If you're telling me going into this season that he'd be the third leading scorer, he'd have however many 30-point games he's had now, but 18, and he'd be performing at the level he's playing at, I'd be happy with that. But if you also tell me he might struggle towards the end of games to really close them out, I'd be like, okay, that's part of the learning process, because never in his career has he been the guy that has been leaned on to win the game when it matters most. That's gone to Joel Embiid for the most part throughout his NBA career. That's gone to James Harden for the most part throughout his NBA career. This is another facet of the game that I have no reason to believe Tyrese Maxey won't get better at. He has done everything in his career to show you that he'll just keep improving, and whatever he's struggling on, he'll get better. And so, yes, right now, it absolutely is telling the story. But I don't think it's the prediction for the way this season is going to end, how Tyrese Maxey is going to be shooting in these minutes towards the end of the season. Because like I said, all the evidence is there. If it's a struggle in his game, he's going to get better at it, Keith.
And I would like to add one thing too, because here's the thing. And again, look, y'all, we're not apologizing for Maxey. This is something that's, is out there. Mm-hmm. But this is something that Maxey also addressed last week when I was in I'm getting confused. When I was in Memphis, right? That's when we found out that, was it Memphis? Yeah, it was Memphis. It was the day before they played. It was like last Tuesday when we found out that Maxey, was, had the second most votes at that particular time. So asked him about it, right? He said, now this is the thing. So he knows what he needs to work on. And here I'm reading this quote. For me personally, I think my talent level has been shown in the NBA. I think it's growing, but for me, it's winning games. That's what shows like a big gap, a big difference, a big talent level, impact on your team. When you have that type of impact, when you can help your team win games, that's what I want to be known for. So that's telling me now when he said that, everything is like, okay, great for him. We understand that. But then when these numbers come out, and he sees what other players are doing, it's obvious, right? You can see it. It lets you know that he's aware of those situations. And this is what he wants to do. He wants to help his team win games. I mean, think about it. He's averaging 31 points a game, 31. But he knows that the crunch time and the clutch, all that is when you need to step up. And he knows he has to step up and take it. So to me, I'm one of those guys. Tyrese Maxey comes out and he says it after every game, and I raise my hand. Like, people see me in the back, raise my hand. Some people chuckle. And the reason why I raise my hand is because when Tyrese Maxey first came in the league, everyone said he can't defend. I wrote that. I wrote about how he was struggling. So he worked on that. Some people said he couldn't shoot threes. I didn't say that, but some people did that. So to me, I'm looking forward to seeing what Tyrese Maxey is going to work on his game this offseason, because everything that we said he couldn't do, he came back and he proved it. Now, this is the biggest step, but based off of what he's been able to do in the past, I have confidence in him that he'll be able to correct that.
I want to just add this one note. It wasn't lost on me, Keith, after the game here against the Nuggets, that he was like, I had 4 steals, but no one says I can play defense. Anyway, we really struggled tonight, blah, blah. And I'm like, you weren't hiding that.
It was funny, though. But the reason, my thing is that it's good times to say that, but sometimes it's times to be like, yo, dude, don't worry about that at this particular game, because, you guys lost a close game to the bad team. And,
exactly.
You tripped and fell before on the shot. Like, we talking about offense today. We ain't talking about we're talking about offense. We're not talking about defense today.
I agree. When we come back, we'll take a look at this game tonight against the Washington Wizards, who they will have up, as well as whether or not anything moves forward when it comes to Oubre and Watford for tonight. Talk about that and more when we return. This is Locked On 76ers and the Locked On Sixers YouTube channel. And right now, let me tell you about Rocket Money. Rocket Money. Absolutely amazing. Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming, between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that just keep on going, and hidden fees. Oh, my goodness gracious, the hidden fees. That's where Rocket Money comes in, the personal finance app that helps you take control of your finances. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. We just used Rocket Money. I'm not going to say the platform, but it turned out my wife and I were both subscribed to it. Thank you, Rocket Money, for canceling one of those subscriptions. Was shocked. Rocket Money showed me so many examples of that, and it can help you out as well. The automatic transaction characterization is a game changer. You can finally see exactly where my money is going each and every month, and you can too with Rocket Money. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/locked-on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. rocketmoney.com/locked-on. And how about with that money you save, you win some more on PrizePicks. This episode brought to you by PrizePicks. Whether you're starting a new routine, jumping into player projections, whatever they might be, PrizePicks has you covered because PrizePicks is the daily fantasy app that makes watching sports even more exciting by letting you build lineups based on player projections, no drafts, no waiting, just pick more or less on player stat projections, and away you go. Getting started on PrizePicks is quick and simple. The app is super easy, and it's just a blast to navigate. Made watching games more engaging, especially when following the individual players. I love the flexibility with options like Flex Play, where you can still get paid even if you miss one pick. Download the PrizePicks app today and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA. That's promo code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So what's cooking for tonight, Keith, when it comes to the 76ers playing host to the Washington Wizards in South Philly?
Hey, can I, before we do that, and I'm going to say that, can I just make two really quick comments? Just two really quick comments. And I got this from two people on here, like, Phil, right? He was talking about how, Phil was talking about how talking about Maxey. He was saying, like, Maxey is one of those things where, he basically doesn't get foul calls the way that SGA and Brunson get. So that adds to it as well, right? So where these guys are getting to the foul line, Maxey is getting called that's a miss. And then another guy, Kendall Williams, basically a person said, Maxey is logging around 40 minutes a game. Of course, his shots aren't going to fall with the fatigue. So those are two things that we have to factor in as well. And I just want to give these people acknowledgement for bringing up pretty good points that a lot of people don't talk about, So that's that. But in regards to tonight's game, tonight's game is one of those things where, the 76ers, I feel a little good for the 76ers from the fact that they lost the last game. Because it's kind of like if there's no looking over any one team now, you would hope that they would be motivated to play and play right. But when we talk about this Washington Wizards team, the Washington Wizards won yesterday. The Washington Wizards, are a team that's been playing pretty well as of late. You look at it and you say to yourself, yeah, I know the Sixers beat them twice. They're the worst team in the league. Is one of those things. Right now they're 10-25. But they've won 5 of their last 6 games before. I should take that back. So they
5-2 in their last 7.
Yeah. So they won 4 out of 5. Then they lost to the Minnesota Timberwolves on Tuesday, and then they won last night. So like you said, 5-7. They've been playing really well. So this is a team where you look at it, yes, the 76ers should win, but at the same time, I'm expecting this team to play hard. Now, again, last game, Keyshawn George didn't play, Corey Crispin didn't play, Cam Whitmore didn't play. These are guys that you look at it, you say to yourself, Keyshawn and Cam definitely probably you think won't play tonight. But aside from that, is a matter of who are the Wizards going to rest, right? Mm-hmm. Who are they going to rest? But at the same time, you do think that the 76ers should be able to beat them.
I hope so, Keith, because, the last time they played a team coming off a back-to-back, they lost, and that was the Denver Nuggets. All right, but no, I got them winning tonight, and I'm going to get crazy here. Kelly Oubre plays. And we're all going to go bananas, man. We're all going to go bananas. Keith Pompey, make sure you guys are reading him, Inquirer.com. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, Locked On 76ers. For people that do enjoy Locked On content, guess what? More Locked On content, at least with me, later on today. Locked On Eagles Squad show on the Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. Me, Jason Martinez, Harry Mays got you covered at 1:30 this afternoon to break it all down even further when it comes to your Philadelphia Eagles. For Keith Pompey, I'm Marc Farzetta. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching Locked On 76ers. Make sure you guys check out the Everydayer Club as well, LockedOn76ers.supercast.com. Sixers Wizards tonight, 7 o'clock. We'll be breaking it all down tomorrow morning. We'll talk then. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. See ya.